quote, abandoned strip malls and other, quote, commercial buildings, as well as, quote, squatting, occupying of, quote, empty houses will become an accepted part of the, quote, new American U.S. of A. social order by the late summer of 2009. The populous U.S. of A. entity shows that by July of 2009, all the rules, that's a quote, rules, that's a word, by which the, quote, social contract was, quote, defined pre-October 2008 will be in a state of, quote, flux. This, quote, flux aspect attribute includes, quote, fluid at one end of its linguistic range and, quote, energetic reorganization at the other. The data sets are indicating that, quote, all components of the, quote, U.S. of A. social contract, including, quote, law, quote, trade, quote, property rights / laws, and, quote, interpersonal communications will be both, quote, dissolving and, quote, being reconstituted over the summer of 2009. This is, quote, not to say that the process is anything other than merely begun next summer. The whole of the process is indicated to be 2 times generational, or nearly 40 years. That's another quote. In its total progression. I'm going to read the last sentence again. This is, quote, not to say that the process is anything other than merely begun next summer. The whole of the process is indicated to be, quote, 2 times generational, or near to, quote, 40 years in its total progression. Clif?
Yeah.
It's quite an introduction for you. Go right ahead.
Well, it's sort of easy to see how such a thing will occur. The death of the dollar's been prevalent since we imposed it as the medium of exchange on petroleum-producing countries with the overthrow of the Shah or the overthrow of the legitimate Iranian government and replacement with the Shah in 1953. The petrodollar has existed since then in really rock-solid form where everybody's afraid to do anything about it. Now, we're at the point where that dollar is dying and the petrodollar itself is going to die. So the pressures that are going to be placed on us, the United States, and that's all we export anymore is dollars or some corrupted form of dollars in the sense of all these special interest vehicles, CDOs, et cetera, all these nasty acronyms that everybody's now familiar with. When those go, we're going to have to redefine ourselves. The powers that be have taken the last 50-plus years and redefined us from a nation of manufacturing, small business people that were independently minded who could cogently discuss things into this dumbed-down state of entitlement, drones or nebbish, and we're going to have to overcome that. And I suspect a 50-year process will take probably close to 40 years to overcome. And we also have to bear in mind they've been dumbing down the education system since the 1890s, that the curriculum for the 1890s for high school our current college people couldn't pass that curriculum.
No, I think I've run that story a number of times, and you're totally on the money with that. This also will be the first generation, this current generation of young people who will not live as long as their parents, nor will they...
That brings up the other issue. If you go and you read some of the very astute minds that are out there, such as Dmitry Orlov in his Reinventing Collapse, and you compare the existence of the people that went through the collapse of the Soviet Empire with the upcoming collapse of the American Empire, we're going to have to face some very serious, harsh conditions that will lead to if we're very poor at it, to a whole lot of unnecessary deaths, simply because the system will break down and for instance, the healthcare system will just go bluey all of a sudden, and we'll have a very difficult time putting it back together.
Right.
This will include things like pharmaceutical industries and all of our infrastructure. It's not merely electrical. We have an infrastructure issue that is based on the dollar, and to a large extent, those trade relations and everything will suffer and fail as a result of that. And the idea that we'll have to deal with free trade issues and negotiating these contracts after the death of the dollar is absurd. Nobody's going to want NAFTA, or they're not going to want to have, at an international level, to have anything to do with it.
They were just nails on the coffin.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's kind of curious the way the whole thing is shaping up, and you can certainly buy into the idea of the invisible hand and the power elite, and that brings us back to some really nasty symbology. And it gets down to this point. We do radical linguistics here, and if you go and investigate linguistics, it's really the scientific understanding of how language works and the changes that it goes through and what it really means to be human and express ourselves with language. And we're at a radical far edge of it because we think that we can make accurate predictions based on some of these nuances. But we are novices compared to some of the people that are moving in larger areas like symbology. And that brings us up to the idea of Michael Tsarian and some of his cohorts or his peers who are out there at the far edge of symbology. And they're actually getting into levels that are beyond our meta-art at the linguistic level and encompass archetypes that are exposed through symbols beyond words. And these people are doing some very powerful research that are uncovering some very powerful archetypes that are being hidden from us all quite deliberately, but are also at the same time being slapped in our faces. The Masonic stuff and, the Washington, D.C. layout and all of this kind of thing. And you start getting into some woo-woo levels that to the trained, schooled, rational mind have been denied by officialdom and will continue to be denied. Unfortunately, those individuals that are trapped in that paradigm are about to experience a paradigm crash. And we're going to have a lot of people out there that are going to go real crazy. And that's why I say I would prefer that people know that this sort of thing is coming. And
well, always better to know than not to know. And I've
correct. And to be able to say, okay, it's going to be bad, And my neighbor down the road, he doesn't understand. He's trapped in the TV-loving NASCAR.
Well, it's still playing football on Sundays. What the hell are you talking about, Clif?
You got it. The world is great. Give me my hot
Look at the stock market, up 400 points. What are you talking about? Gas is down. It's $3.20 a gallon.
25,000 pretty soon. Isn't that great?
Well, let me tell you.
Unfortunately, when it costs $25,000 to buy his keg of beer, he's going to go a little on the crazy side, and you're going to have to deal with it.
It's time to buy your ammunition now, friends, not later.
Or take it a different way. Let us redefine the paradigm. Let us seize control and not fall into the paradigm of having to shoot each other just because the power elites have decided that they want to finish off a great number of humans. I'm quite serious about this.
I am very serious too, and I have always said, and I still feel that the so-called power elite will quite literally take all of us down rather than voluntarily give up or have power taken from them. I think they're that evil.
They're indeed that evil. And let us look at four possible scenarios here. And the four possible scenarios are that the power elite achieve their goals and do as they choose in the first two options. And one of the options it works very well for them, and the other option it doesn't work quite as well, and they go a little crazy and are openly tyrannical on top of the whole planet. Now, the other two options are that, the option number 3 is that we, as the humans involved, stand up and surrender and sacrifice ourselves to take these power elite down. And maybe not very many people survive. Or we could think of this as a strategic surgical kind of a thing, and the people rise up and crush what essentially amount to about 10,000 individuals that are very wealthy and powerful. Now, you're going to get people running around screaming that, oh, no, he's a communist. He wants to, take over all of their wealth and redistribute it and all this kind of stuff. And let me tell you, I am far more dangerous than a communist or a socialist. These people are just trapped within the system. I'm a radical linguist, and I'm on my way to becoming a symbologist on the order of Michael Tsarian. And my deal with your listeners tonight is that if anybody wants to read a complete Alta report, which is the one we've just finished, I will make them a special deal, and it doesn't involve sending me any money whatsoever, and it involves them becoming self-educated and taking that step on becoming self-educated by going to Michael Tsarian's site, and that's Michael Tsarian, TSARION.com, and buy anything off his site, any of his e-books, any of his DVDs or anything, and I'm assuming that you'll read it because you've put money for it. But if you'll buy it and send me that transaction ID, I'll give you a copy of our most recent report sealed up in a zip file that's all PDFs, and I won't take a dime from you. Now, bear in mind, you won't get any rights as a subscriber. You won't be able to come into the new series as reduced rate or anything. But here you're going to get, 50, 60 pages with charts and graphs and all of the wrappings in the whole process, and it will take you through some of the stuff we're going to be experiencing over the next 6 to 9 months with some detail.
That's an extraordinary offer. Michael, of course, is a friend, a colleague, and a friend of this program, and has done some staggering work. He is one of the world's preeminent researchers and thinkers, and that's very good. So, Michael, Tsarian.com?
Correct. And I don't care what it is. If you want to buy his ebook, I think that it's $24.95. So here you're going to get one of our reports that we retail out at $360 for going and buying his book for $24.95, and then you get both his book and my work.
Wow.
And believe me, you're going to want to read his book a whole lot more than you're going to want to read our work.
Well, you're being very humble there. I think they certainly are in their own right, equally as intriguing. Michael's work is extraordinary. Yours is often staggering.
That's kind of you, but really, truly, he's going to have a much longer lasting impact than I will.
Time will tell. I think there's room for both of you, and all three of you, in fact. Okay, so Michael Tsarian, that's Michael, and then TSARION.com. Buy anything on Michael's site. And how do they contact you?
Send it to moon@halfpasthuman.com. Send me a copy of the transaction ID. As soon as I've taken that transaction ID, and I'll send you a copy of the report, and then I'll destroy the transaction ID and even your email because this is not that kind of a business. We don't save any of that.
All right, very good. Moon@halfpasthuman.com. Thank you, Clif, for sharing your work tonight, and give my best to George. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, good night. Clif, hi, and thanks to you for being here. We'll be back in 21 hours. We're running a little late. See you tomorrow night.